In 1888, a revolutionary new medicine was invented. Along with coffee, this new medicine was recommended to consume 3 times a day and promised to cure digestive issues. This miracle medicine? Salisbury steak.
Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. I love my little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a pig. Bow wow 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 wow. Daddy
Hello,
wasn't
and welcome to the
finding a
Mochiverse. I'm
bow
Linette,
wow.
Yes, and I'm Skip.
and Salisbury steak. I think that's so good.
Salisbury steak. Okay.
Salisbury steak. Salisbury steak is medicine in a way, in that it's like comfort food, but I don't know about that helping digestive issues. I don't know about you.
No, I don't. Yeah, I don't think it would agree with me much, but
No,
uh,
it's like it's got onions and stuff and all kind,
yeah,
usually onion soup mix, and it's like, yeah, you're making appointments with your bathroom at that point.
yeah.
It's not really,
At least it wasn't liver and onions. So,
oh, just
and
disgusting.
for all those folks that love liver and onions, I apologize. So,
I'm so glad that is a bygone era of our culture, is the liver and onions trend.
yep.
That sort of, I guess it would have died out when your generation was like becoming adults, right? Because I'm sure that your parents' generation loved the shit out of that stuff.
Well, it would be like it was always kind of funny now that I think about talking about liver and onions, is that when my mother was unavailable, having a baby or whatever, or recovering from having a baby or sick while being pregnant.
Oh,
Uh,
he let her be unavailable during those times?
he
That's
let her
nice.
be unavailable. It was one of the few times.
Yeah.
Um, the my dad would cook, and he would cook liver and onions, and nobody would eat it. And
Oh
it's
no.
and it came down. It finally got to the point that that's where I started to learn how to cook for the family. Uh,
Oh
you
my
know,
goodness. Yeah,
yeah.
because you had a couple. We don't have to call anybody out, but I have heard that you had a couple picky siblings.
Yep, that's for sure.
I mean, which, you know what? Let's be fair. If you have, like, there's 8 of you, there's bound to be at least one or two that doesn't want something. But I can imagine, like, in your generation, it's funny to hear about picky kids, like, because wait, that was an option back then. Like, what do you?
Well, I think that, there, for some reason, I think one didn't like corned beef and cabbage, and someone else didn't like vegetables, which is not unusual.
No. And
And
your
I'm
mother
sure
was very nice too. I mean, and she loved cooking apparently because she did so much of it. She would have been happy to make separate things for everybody.
yeah, when I started working and my brother Jerry started working, and there's two of the older ones. So there'd be actually 4 separate meals, 3 separate meals, one for my dad, one for me, one for Jerry, and then the other one for the rest of the kids. So
Oh wow.
I don't know how the heck she did it. God bless her.
Today we're having an episode. We're
Not
just
an episode like, never mind. Okay, good.
yeah, we are, but that's a separate thing. That's another issue. We're always having an episode.
Yeah,
But today we're actually going to do a topic, so that's a treat. Welcome back, by the way.
it's great to be back.
Yay. So today we're going to be exploring one of my favorite topics, and one that I can usually talk ad nauseum about, which is like messed up medical history. Originally I was going to make this one a two-parter, but it turns out it's probably going to end up being a little mini series, which is kind of cool because there's so much about the history of medicine and the recent, like, modern history of medicine that just seems so weird, and it's kind of wacky, especially in our current context. And so we're going to sort of break it down into different things. Today we're going to start to talk about things that used to be considered medicine and are now either everyday things that we are just familiar with, or like foods or drinks, things like that. We're gonna eventually go over some of the more misguided ancient or old-timey cures that are like, what are they thinking or were they thinking? But yeah, so I figured what we would start with is, some of the products that were first used as medicine. Does that sound agreeable to you?
Oh yeah, I'm done with
You
that.
down with that? Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that works.
Did I
Okay.
say it that way? Oh man. Anyway.
You did it. You're using all this modern language. I'm so proud of you. It's so good. All right. Okay, so the sodas are a big one. That's usually the one a lot of people know about, but it's a pleasure to talk about. So I'm going to talk about it. Most people know that a lot of sodas that we drink used to be medicine. And most people know the big one, which is Coca-Cola. A lot of people know the story about Coca-Cola. It was originally marketed as a nerve tonic.
Yeah, so let me sort of jump in here. Like when I
Yeah.
see the word tonic, it just reminds me. Grew up in the Northeast and actually in Massachusetts, and we
Yes.
referred to the soda. Now we refer to soda. We used to refer to it as tonic, and so
Yeah.
just it's amazing. That's probably the origin of using that terminology.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually had that in my notes because like there are still parts of New England that hang on to that. Mostly it was like when I was growing up, it was just a couple of aunts that said tonic. We
Mhm.
always said soda. But like, yeah, other parts of the country, like it sounds so weird when people say pop, but I guess, a lot of states say pop. They say soda. A lot of like there was a couple of states that just say Coke for everything, like Hawaii
Yeah.
says like, what kind of Coke do you want with that? Um, my old boss used to say he would say either cold drink like that. He would say, "Who can I get you cold drink?" Or he would say Coca-Cola. He'd say, "What kind of Coca-Cola do you want?" And I'd say Dr. Pepper, of course. But yeah, that's kind of interesting how there are still a few people that say tonic, and that's where tonic comes from. Pretty neat. But yeah, so Coca-Cola, we all know the thing about Coca-Cola. If you ask somebody, "Hey, what do you know about Coca-Cola?" And the first thing they say is, "Oh yeah, it used to have cocaine in it," right? So everybody says. If you go to Atlanta, which we did, and they're very, very quick to tell you in the tour, despite what people think, Coca-Cola has never contained and does not contain cocaine. And you just go, okay. So at the risk of getting a cease and desist from the Coca-Cola company, they probably say that because the original formula used coca leaves and not actually, technically cocaine yet because they didn't make it into cocaine. So that's why they can say that. But yeah, they definitely used coca leaves, which is where cocaine comes from. So, just that is true. And then the other part of Coca-Cola is derived from the cola nut, which is like the cola nut is kind of like a cousin of the cocoa bean. And so that contains caffeine. So my sort of first impression, I was a little confused because this is supposed to be a nerve tonic, right? And
Mhm.
it has like caffeine and cocaine in it. That doesn't calm my nerves. I mean, all those times I take cocaine, like
Yeah, it doesn't seem like you said, it doesn't seem like it's actually screams out calm.
calmness. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, so Pemberton, the guy who invented Coca-Cola, he was actually looking for an alternative for himself, for morphine, because he had an addiction to morphine after injuries from military service. But he was also looking for like a similar drink to something very popular in France and throughout the rest of Europe called Vin Mariani, which is like a wine that had coca leaves in it. So it was like wine and cocaine. It was like really popular drink. And it was a tonic as well, of course, because all these things start off as like medicinal. Um,
Mhm.
so he wanted to have something similar to that. But in the late 1800s, Georgia prohibited alcohol-based tonics and drinks. So he had to take the wine out. So that's when he replaced it with the cola syrup, presumably serving it in his drugstore. I don't remember now if he was a pharmacist or he sold it to a pharmacist. There was a pharmacist involved selling it in the drugstore as a tonic, and then it became marketed as like a drink people just wanted.
Oh yeah, and the drugstores used to be like that. They would have
Mhm.
areas where they would serve up drinks
Hmm.
sodas, whatever you want, in the mixture of the syrup and seltzer and whatever else they put in there. They call it soda fountain.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I guess ice cream sundaes came from those days when you had like the soda jerks and you had the soda fountains at the pharmacies.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Because I think the Sunday came about because there was a rule, sort of a throwback to our episode we did about weird laws.
Mm-hmm.
And it was one of those weird Sunday laws where in this town or many towns, it was illegal to serve, I think, soda or carbonated drinks on Sundays.
Mm-hmm.
And so they did like ice cream instead and sort of they took their syrups that they used to flavor the sodas and put it on the ice cream instead and made ice cream sundaes.
There you go.
Yeah. So that sounds good. I mean, that's a good development. We like good developments, you know,
Yeah, yeah,
that
exactly.
it might have come from a weird law, but at least it didn't come from like a war. So that's good.
Mm-hmm.
So that's Coca-Cola. 7 Up also was originally called Bib Label Lithiated Lemon Lime Soda,
Well, that's a
which
mouthful.
yeah, it just rolls right off the tongue, right? It had lithium in it, which some might argue should be in the water supply in most places, either Prozac or lithium. Um, that would have been probably a better nerve tonic because it kind of calms you down, sedates you. It's used to treat certain mental illnesses. They treated it for bipolar disorder back then. It's not really used as much anymore. It's kind of an old fashioned, but we still, we still see lithium for people who can't take certain other things. So that was 7 Up. And you can imagine like later on, as these things were popular as patients, you would try to make it more palatable. And so you would add nicer flavorings. And then, they just, with the sodas, it seems like they just succeeded too much and it became just a drink people just wanted because, like, yay, that medicine's really good. Can I have some of that for no reason? And they're like, well, yeah, it's a nickel. You're going to pay a nickel. I'll give you whatever you want. Like, and then so we come up to everybody's favorite because if you're from New England and you're listening to this, you're very familiar with this crap. It's called Moxie. Do you have any experiences with Moxie, Dad?
Uh, it is weird tasting, and
It
if
is.
you think about it, and I see your explanation of it, but now
Yeah.
that I think about it, it's kind of like you think it starts out like you think it's going to taste like root beer, but it actually has this weird taste like you're drinking soap.
Yeah.
Uh,
It's
and
exactly what it tastes like. You first sip, it tastes like a sweet root beer, and you're like, "Oh, this isn't so bad." And you're like, "Oh, soap. What the hell's going on?" I
exactly, yeah,
Yeah, it's actually still popular in parts of New England.
Maine, I think, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
Maine especially. Maine took, even though it was invented in Massachusetts, what did I say? Lowell, Massachusetts.
Mm.
Um, it's one of those things that people defend by calling it an acquired taste. Um, Now you and I of the younger generations, Dad, we
Yeah.
recognize that you don't have to eat or drink nasty things for years until you get used to them because we have choices now.
It's true, and I think that, they would be like, well, hey, don't drink it warm, get it nice and cold. Well, that didn't make any difference. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, that sounds like you're talking about colonoscopy prep. So, yeah, just put it in the fridge. Listen, no, you're
yeah,
not
there you go.
fooling anybody. Okay. I'm going to drink a gallon of like, basically engine coolant. It's not going to taste better if it's,
No,
it's like radiator fluid. Christ's sake. Yeah. So Moxie, it does. It tastes like root beer and soap. And I wonder if it created some nostalgia for the kids who used to get their mouth washed out with soap.
that could be.
Like Ralphie.
That's
They're like, this
interesting
one tastes
twist.
like yeah, this one tastes like life buoy.
Oh yeah, this is what I remember when I was bad. Yeah, okay, so
Yeah,
uh,
yeah, all those good days.
yeah,
That nasty taste I think comes from gentian root, which is actually it is used in medicine still today. Um, The inventor, Augustine Thompson, claimed it was effective against paralysis, softening of the brain, which I don't know what that means. Maybe because my brain has gone soft. Nervousness and insomnia. Um, so like gentian root is really used in real life now for like digestive stuff, muscle spasms, hypertension. It's used for parasites also, parasitic worms. If you've ever heard of gentian violet, it's this purple, it's like an old-fashioned remedy, is this purple stuff, and it would stain anything, by the way, if you spilled it. Um, but you would drink like this little bottle. It was like a little 1 ounce or 2 ounce bottle, and it would get rid of your worms when you had worms. So this sounds
Drink
good.
it quick.
Drink it quick. Yep. And your mouth would be purple for a couple days, and then you wouldn't have any more worms. They used to
That's
use
right.
it for pinworms before they came out with the good banana flavored stuff. So,
Yeah.
and Moxie was originally called Moxie Nerve Food. And yeah, like you said earlier, Maine has taken up the obsession with Moxie. They
Yeah,
have
you
like
still,
Moxie
yeah.
Day and stuff. Yeah.
Yep, they do, and you could, you'd still see advertising posters in these stores up in Maine for Moxie. So,
Yeah. I had actually the last time I had Moxie, we were up in Maine and we went to this really cool, I forget the actual name of it, but it's like a railroad museum and it's a
mhm,
big outdoor place that has all these old trains that were decommissioned, like mostly from the T. So it was mostly from the MBTA, like old subway trains, old commuter rail trains, the old platforms and stuff. And they have a track that they set up that you can actually sit and go onto one of the trains and go around the property. But it's really cool. Like some of the old train carriages, you can go in and see the stuff. It's a cute little place, really nice. And I think it's free. If it's not free, it's like main prices. So like good price.
good prices, yeah.
Yeah.
And for those that are don't know what MBTA is, it's Massachusetts Bay Transportation Authority,
Transit Authority. Yeah, Transit
Transit
Authority.
Authority. Yeah,
Yep, it's
yeah,
the T. Everybody knows it is the
yeah,
T. That's
right.
our transportation, which is actually not that bad, but of course we're going to complain about it if we're in Massachusetts, but it actually is pretty efficient, I think.
Yep.
It's got a lot of history to it. Actually, I think that I read that the first subway in the United States was in Boston, which I was
Yeah,
surprised.
I
I would have
don't.
thought New York, but I guess the MBTA was first. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah,
But yeah, so anyway, I was in Maine at that transportation museum and it happened to be Moxie Day and they were giving out free samples. I'm like, well, I don't think I ever had this stuff. And I was like, I tasted it. I was like, oh, that's not so bad. Everybody's complaining so much about the taste. And then it hit me, that soap
yeah.
flavor.
The very first, by the way, the very first was Tremont Street Subway in
Oh,
Boston.
okay.
Yeah, it opened in 1897.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
That's pretty late too for the country, I guess. Well,
yeah.
I don't know. Underground things are hard to do. So, yeah, so that's Moxie. So Pepsi. Pepsi's another one. You can guess from the name that it was a tonic for indigestion, but it doesn't have any pepsin in it. But I think I think that's why they called it Pepsi. It was originally called Brad's drink,
Mhm.
which is kind of funny. The guy who originally sold it in his drugstore was named Caleb Bradham, which makes more sense than a guy named Brad in the 1800s because like I don't think there was anybody named Brad
No,
in
I
the
don't think so either.
1800s. So Brad's drink. Pepsi, I mean, I don't have much to say about Pepsi because I don't like Pepsi. I'm a Coke person. I'm a
Yeah,
Dr. Pepper person, actually. But
yeah, yeah.
Pepsi is the thing that they ask you if it's okay when you ask for Coke.
Well, that's it, because you'll ask for Coke and they'll say, we don't have Coke, we have Pepsi.
Yes, Pepsi okay? Oh, I
Yeah,
guess.
yeah, I guess. So,
I feel bad for I feel really bad for wait staff at restaurants that serve Pepsi. They're like, I have to ask this 7,000 times a day because
that's
nobody's
right.
going to
Yeah.
ask for Pepsi. Nobody asks for Pepsi. They always ask for Coke.
Yep,
Um,
that's it.
it really is. So the next one is something I have a nostalgic feeling for, which is Dr. Brown's Celery. Have you ever had that stuff?
No, I never did.
So it's celery soda. I've had it a few times because the first time I had it, I was like amazed. And I actually got like, you know, teenager obsessed with it for a while. But the first time I had it was in a New York style deli in Boston when I was at a Star Trek convention, actually. Um, and it was actually a really weird but a good match for a pastrami sandwich, if you can imagine. Like it's just tastes, it was cold, so that helps, but it was like it was just kind of like, a nice bubbly celery flavor goes good with pastrami sandwich for some reason. Um,
Mm,
I don't know, it's weird, but it was originally sold as a medicine to calm the stomach and bowels, which is it's really great. They called it Dr. Brown's celery tonic, but the FDA in the early 1900s objected to the name tonic because it sounded too much like they were claiming it was medicine. This is around the time that the FDA started to actually make people serious about their claims. They changed it to Dr. Brown's Cel-Ray, so it's CEL-RAY. And it became popular in the late 1800s in Brooklyn, where it originated, and it earned the nickname Jewish champagne because I guess everybody was drinking it. So that's very cute. And you could still get it. Dr. Brown's has other flavors that are just like normal, like cream soda and stuff. Their cream soda is very good, which
yeah.
nobody really drinks cream soda anymore, but I like it. Um, but their Celeray is still available, and I feel like, if they sold it in a single can, I'd probably buy it once again and you know, just to drink it for nostalgia's sake. But it's not, I don't know. It's not exactly like the sodas we're used to. Did you ever go to either when you went to Disney or if you ever went to Atlanta, did you ever go to the Coca-Cola place where they had all the fountains with all the different flavors from around the world?
If I did, I don't recall doing it. If no, would that been in Epcot?
I think so. I've never been to Disney World, but I hear that they have one there. But they have it in Atlanta at the Coca-Cola Museum.
Hmm.
And it's
Yeah,
basically this big room that has all these soda fountains. And it's all these varieties of soda from all the different countries.
yeah. I think I would have remembered that, but
You just get little cups and you can try a little bit of it. And most of them are
yeah,
really good.
yeah.
There's one that's terrible and it's notorious. Whenever you mention it to anybody, if they've been there, they talk about it. And it's called Beverly.
Really?
Yes, it's still served in Italy, actually. So what it was basically kind of like what Moxie was going for, because when Moxie was being promoted, the guy who was advertising it described it as a delicious blend of bitter and sweet, a drink to
Right.
satisfy everyone's taste. So this was back when people liked bitter things. Well, in Italy, there's a drink called Campari, which you may have had, and it is quite
Mm.
bitter, but it's pleasant. It's bitter, but it's pleasant. It has its place. And they wanted to make a soda that was bitter, because some people like a bitter taste. So they made this Beverly soda, and I'm I'm not kidding you. It is the worst tasting thing. And there's videos all over YouTube of people trying it, and they just dare each other to drink it. And I tried it when I was in Atlanta, and it literally tastes like earwax in a
Yeah,
soda. So,
that's
like, if you like that sort of thing,
it doesn't sound very appealing to me.
earwax soda, it's like those jelly beans. That's fun. And then we come to my favorite, which is Dr. Pepper. I mean, my actual favorite is Diet Dr. Pepper. But Dr. Pepper, it actually preceded Coca-Cola by a year, which there you go. It was introduced in 1885 in Waco, Texas by a pharmacist, of course. And the formula, like Coke, is like a closely guarded secret. And it's really funny because it's said to be kept in two halves, the recipe, in two separate safe deposit boxes in two separate banks, which is real casual. Um, but it did at the time it was invented, it made health claims like aiding digestion, restoring vim, vigor, and vitality, which advertisements used to love to say. And so, sugar and caffeine. And there are rumors because the recipe is a secret. And it's even more of a secret than Coca-Cola because nobody knows the actual recipe for Coca-Cola, and that one's in a safe too. But like, there's cola and there's coca, right? So you're like, okay, I guess I know pretty much what it is caramel coloring and all that. But nobody's allowed to know anything about Dr. Pepper's recipe. So people just decided to make up their own stories about it. And for a long time, there was that rumor that it was like basically prune juice. And I mean, and you see, you laughed because that's why they did it. It's like because prune juice is apparently only for like old constipated people. So
Yeah, and from my standpoint, when I drink a Dr. Pepper, it makes me think a bit like a cherry Coke.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, so
Yeah, because if there isn't any, like if we so we buy a lot of soda in my house, and when it's my choice, I get Diet Dr. Pepper. And then when it's Richard's choice, he gets the Coke Zero. But sometimes if he's feeling really sweet and nice, he'll say, you know what, this time I got you the Coke Zero Cherry. And it's like, it's a pretty close second to the Diet Dr. Pepper, in my opinion. So I could
yeah,
see, yeah, there's
yeah.
definitely a fruit flavor of some kind in there.
There's fruit flavor of some kind. You're right.
Yeah.
Which if you think about it, it's pretty obvious when you talk about a pharmacist making it, because that goes back to the soda fountain
Yeah.
where they would mix the drinks, and that's sort of how they'd start out doing. Like someone would say, I want a Coke, but I like some vanilla in it, or I'd like
Yeah.
some. You can very easily see how they could have happened that way.
Yeah, which is really cool. And I kind of wish those days would come back because I, there was one place, I think in Newburyport. I don't know if they still have the fountain, but they still had a
Yeah.
lot of the elements of
Mhm.
their old pharmacy counter
Yep.
intact. Like they had the little cigarette booth and then they had the sandwich counter. I don't know if they still had the soda fountains, but it's just I don't know, it was just so nice. And by the way, fountain soda tastes better than any other soda. So you can add the level of flavored syrup in there or other flavorings to make it taste different than the competitor. You know what I mean? So you get a different
Yep.
experience depending on who's doing it. So like seems so good. And like also lemon Coke is good. Have you ever had that? It's just really nice.
No, I haven't. No. So,
Yeah, it's good. Like if you use like the lemon syrup in Coke syrup, it's like really tasty.
yeah.
But yeah, so those are they used to be medicinal. I think with the sodas they were medicinal in that these kind of days like 1800s and such, it was kind of too much of a fuss to go to the doctor if you had any kind of complaints. It was more common to go to your pharmacist if you had anything going on. And
Yeah.
so there were a lot of remedies back then that were, this one makes this feel a little better, that one makes feel that a little better. But people discovered pretty quickly that sugar is good for digestive complaints. I mean, it helps you with like
Yeah.
stomach issues.
Yeah.
And things like caffeine, they learned pretty quickly that caffeine it kind of brightens you up even if you weren't feeling that great that day. Caffeine can help you feel better. And even if you have a cold, if you have some caffeine, you have a cold, it kind of it kind of takes away some of your cold symptoms. I mean, it helps with headaches. So I can understand how these things, you know, started off as medicine, but then the creativity came in and it just became, especially when you're adding a lunch counter, like, yeah, I'll have some soda with my sandwich.
Yeah. And I think the idea of the tonic part of it was settling your stomach
Hmm.
is is something that really is carried on for generations, and you still hear it from time to time. Someone says, give me some warm Coke or something
Yep.
like that.
Oh
It's
yeah,
just
flat Coke. I
a,
mean, they still
a
sell it.
flat. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they still sell cola syrup. Just
yeah,
just a little bottle, like a 2-ounce bottle of cola syrup
mhm,
that you just
yeah,
drink for nausea. And it does
yeah.
work because it's sugar and the sugar and the caffeine together just kind of help your I think it just kind of helps your body regulate itself a little bit better when you're not feeling that great. And caffeine is gonna raise your metabolism a little bit. So if you're nauseous because you ate too much, caffeine is gonna probably get your digestion moving a little faster so you can get rid of all that food you ate a little bit faster. Just like move it through. So And this is not a medical podcast. I'm not a doctor. So we're not going to claim we know anything about this shit, but it is fascinating.
Yep.
Other products that aren't soda, there's a few things. This was the one you brought to the table, Listerine, which
Yep.
I had read about a long time ago. So when germ theory became a thing, with Louis Pasteur, Joseph Lister, he demonstrated that carbolic acid was effective in killing germs when used like on surgical dressings. They cleaned like all the surfaces with the carbolic acid. It became obvious that it was effective. And he inspired a lot of scientists and doctors with this. And Dr. Joseph Lawrence developed Listerine and named it after him. And it was originally used, like the carbolic acid, as a surgical antiseptic, which my notes
Yeah, I saw
auto-corrected.
intraseptic. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't notice that autocorrect. But it
Yeah.
was later used as a floor cleaner and a treatment for gonorrhea. So those two things. Now,
Okay.
you know what that reminds me of? Do you remember the SNL sketch? It's like a whipped cream can. And it was like, I thought it was Gilda Radner and like Chevy Chase. No, it might have been Dan Aykroyd. And they have it, and she says it's a floor wax, and she puts it on the floor, and she's like waxing her floor with it, and he goes, no, it's a dessert topping, and he puts it on his ice cream. And then she's like, no, it's a floor wax, and he's like, it's a dessert topping, you stupid cow.
That sounds like Dan Aykroyd, because they make you immediately think of the Betamax 1000, so.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, they used to do so well with those
Oh,
commercials
yeah,
back
they
in the
did. Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
But that's what that reminds me of. So it's for gonorrhea and a floor cleaner. So,
There you go.
just do with that what you will. Um, and then it made its way into dentist's office because clearly the next step from gonorrhea and cleaning the floors is your mouth.
That's right.
Which so they found it was a good antiseptic for the mouth too. I can't imagine what people's mouths were like at a time when it
Yeah.
was equated with gonorrhea. But anyway, it became the first over-the-counter mouthwash in the US in 1914. And that was one of those advertising campaigns. And I think we should do an episode on this in the future. Advertising campaigns that gave people insecurities. That was one of the first ones because all of the advertising campaigns were basically saying to women, your breath stinks and everybody knows it
Yeah.
and you better do something about it. You need to buy this stuff. It's like with
Mm,
the deodorant stuff and the razors and all of that good stuff. It's like you are disgusting. Buy this
yeah.
product, and everybody will
That's
think
right.
you're
That's
beautiful
right.
again.
Yeah.
They had these ads that were like, he's not going to want to kiss you because you're gross. So buy
Yeah.
Listerine. It's so terrible. It was always aimed at women too, because yeah, that's just society. Vaseline has an interesting origin story. So there was a chemist named Robert Cheeseborough. He was traveling for research into new uses for kerosene because he had developed kerosene. He created it using whale oil. So he was visiting an oil rig and he noticed that this substance called rod wax was being used like on the machines, and it was like used as a lubricant in the oil rig pumps, but then also that workers were using it to heal cuts and burns because they just accidentally figured out that if this gets on your burn, it made it feel better. So he took a sample and he extracted the petroleum jelly from it and then marketed it as Vaseline and called it a new and useful medicinal product. Vaseline comes from the German word Wasser for water, and the Greek word, which is like, I don't know how to pronounce that, but it's like Elion or whatever it is. It's the
Leon.
Greek
That's
Elion,
yeah.
the Greek word for oil. So
Yep.
water and oil.
Water and oil. Yep.
Yeah, that's pretty good. So Vaseline, which we don't really use as much anymore. But every day somebody asks me for it. So I guess people are still talking about it. Back to food or back to edible things. Graham crackers and cornflakes. I put these together because they kind of came about at roughly the same time. Graham crackers was first and cornflakes came second, but sort of for the same reasons. So there were these two nut jobs. And Sylvester Graham was the one, he was the main nut job. He was like, I think he was He was some sort of minister, and he was a health guru person.
Yep.
And he had these notions about people. And one of his main notions was that foods that had strong flavors or foods that weren't bland were really bad for you because foods that had too much flavor would give you lustful thoughts, basically. I mean, this is all about sex, this whole thing. And so he invented like graham flour, and which was made later into graham crackers, and it was originally like this this cure for everything that made you sick, because his philosophy, uh while it was against like any kind of lustful thoughts, he also felt that these thoughts and this excitement of the body was what made every illness. This is why he's a nut job and a quack. Basically, if you just take away all flavor, all food, your body won't be excited anymore and it can concentrate on being healthy. And the only way to be healthy was to just bore yourself to death in any way. And so that's why he invented graham crackers. And I think he may have been the guy who wanted, it was either him or Kellogg, who wanted you to chew your food like 8,000 times because you weren't supposed to, I don't know, you weren't supposed to swallow anything that wasn't a liquid anyways. But yeah, just weirdo. And then John Harvey Kellogg and his brother um, invented cornflakes for the same basic kind of reason. John Harvey Kellogg had this compound, this sort of health retreat well, he was from Battle Creek, but I don't remember if the actual place was in Battle Creek. I think it might have been where you could go and have all your ailments taken care of. Most of the time, what you would do is you would do exercising, not vigorous exercising, of course, but you would have a lot of enemas at this place. Like John Harvey Kellogg was obsessed with enemas as well as bland food. So you couldn't eat meat, you couldn't eat spicy foods, no alcohol, and you had to have yogurt and coffee enemas like every day, like multiple times a day. And he used to do like water treatments and stuff, hot water, cold water, all this kind of crazy water cure stuff. And his cornflake invention with his brother was sort of kind of went alongside that. It kind of went along with his whole philosophy of you need to eat these kind of foods in order to keep away the lustful thoughts. And in fact, it is said, whether it's according to him or according to people writing about him, uh, he was married for many, many years and adopted many, many children, never had sex with his wife because he felt it was wrong. Like, okay.
Okay, so we
I mean,
just
that's
ate a lot of
fine.
cornflakes. Okay, yep.
Just eat a lot of cornflakes. It's much better.
Yep.
Yeah, so those are, listen, if you, next time you're having s'mores, you could thank Sylvester Graham for being just a complete and total weirdo. And then we could talk about Hershey later because he was weird too.
Yeah.
I think he was another one of those guys who like never had sex with his wife and adopted a bunch of kids. I don't know what was wrong with these dudes in the 1800s. Things that did taste better. Have you heard of Goo Goo clusters?
No, I never heard of Google clusters.
Yeah, I think they're from the South, but you can see them in all the stores here, but they're
Mhm.
basically like it looks kind of like the chocolate turtles.
Yeah.
It looks kind of like that. It's basically this big round kind of lumpy, it's a candy bar and it's like the size of like a moon pie. It's pretty big. And it has like
Mhm.
peanuts and marshmallow and caramel and stuff in it. It's really yummy. But they actually marketed it when it first came out, like during the Depression. It came out in 1920. And so when the Depression hit, they were actually marketing it as kind of a medicine, but more like food. So they were calling it a nourishing lunch for a nickel
Mm.
to working class people who couldn't afford much food. So it's kind of like, it seems a bit weird to advertise a candy bar as like a meal, but if you think about, what is it, Snickers?
Yeah.
Snickers has been doing that for years. And aren't they the ones who do the hangry commercials where they have a celebrity and it's like, oh, you're turning into a diva. So it's like Aretha Franklin in the commercial, and it's really one of their
Yeah.
friends. And they give him a Snickers, and then he turns back into the friend because he was being a diva because he was hangry. Because it has peanuts in it, so it automatically becomes a whole meal. So
Yeah. the original recipe was really 1912, which was
1912. Oh, okay.
yeah, milk chocolate, peanuts, caramel, and marshmallow nougat. But they probably didn't, get it into manufacture until the 20s. This stuff
Yeah,
comes, they'll have the recipe and it, it's probably sold at one store, one place is making it, and then it becomes popular, and then they decide to put it in a factory, and then it really becomes popular,
that's true.
when it starts being a full breaded manufacturing.
Yeah, the name for those is cute because it's called Goo Goo Clusters because it's named after like baby noises.
Hmm.
Because their advertising campaign was that it was so good they'll ask for it from birth. I mean, that is kind of cute to have like a little baby going goo goo. It's like Meow Mix, Cats ask for it by name.
Yep.
Yep.
And if you're really looking for it, you can get a 12 pack for $24. Anyway,
They're good. You should try them. They're really good. Like
yeah.
they're legit. They're not really at all the stores. Like you can't just get it everywhere, but they kind of have old-fashioned packaging. So you can buy it at all those roadside places. But I
Mhm.
think the last time I saw one was at Tractor Supply. You know how when you go to Tractor Supply, they have at the registers, they have all the
Oh yeah.
old-fashioned candies. Yeah.
Yep.
So it's there with the Necco wafers and the other old-fashioned candies, which I'm sorry, Necco wafers are good, even though they don't taste like much. I just,
Yeah, and as you would figure out, Walmart makes their own version of the Google clusters. They have a, a peanut caramel and nougat bar. As they don't call it a Google, they just call it peanut. Just call it the
oh,
whole bar with
see,
all the stuff in it.
they should be more creative like people do with Dr. Pepper. Like
Hmm.
there's a whole culture around grocery stores renaming Dr. Pepper with their own name. You know how cereals do it all the time.
Yep.
But like
Yep.
Dr. Pepper and they don't do it with the other ones as much. But with Dr. Pepper in particular, like Walmart's is Dr. Thunder. And which is so great. They should be more creative like Trader Joe's is and just name it something, something cool.
Yep.
That's all right. I don't work for Walmart, so I guess I don't have any say.
Right. Right.
Right. Okay, ketchup. So this is the one that you're going to find if you do searches for things that used to be medicine. And it's kind of debatable because ketchup is so old. Well, the name ketchup is so old, but it's nothing like what we have now, right? It wasn't even tomatoes in the beginning. Ketchup was originally, it was taken from like this dialect of Chinese that means like fish sauce. So it was originally made with like, fermented fish and fish guts and all kinds of other parts. And it was a sauce. So it wasn't necessarily a medicine, but back in ancient times, a lot of foods and sauces were used medicinally at the same time as used as food. So there's a lot of stories you'll read. You'll read one article source that says it was a medicine. You'll read another article source that says it was just a sauce, like a condiment.
Right.
But it came to the UK through trading, that's how the UK says it. We know all about that, colonization and all that crap. And then it maybe just because of different tastes, it evolved into a mushroom based sauce, which actually, when I'm reading about this mushroom ketchup, it sounds really good. It's just like a mushroom puree that you put
Hmm.
on stuff. And I could go for that. That's basically like the stuff that's on like a beef Wellington
Oh yeah. Okay.
is that
All right.
mushroom layer that's like underneath the pastry. I mean that I can get behind that. So that's was like a mushroom ketchup. And then in the 1800s in the United States, tomatoes were added, and this is when the medicine part comes in. Basically, is Dr. Cook Bennett claimed because of the tomatoes or because of his concoction or just because he wanted to make money, he claimed it could cure diarrhea, indigestion, jaundice, and rheumatism. So that's pretty useful.
Oh yeah.
And when it first came out, the fish was still in there, but it was just like add tomatoes, I guess. Take out the mushrooms and add tomatoes. I don't know. There's ways that you can put fish in something that is good. I mean, I'll eat Caesar salad. There's fishes in that. I eat
Right.
Worcestershire sauce. I love it. That's fermented fish. And fish sauce in a lot of like Asian cooking, it just adds such a great element. So I can understand. But then when you say fish sauce, for some reason, it just kind of makes the
Doesn't.
yeah, it tastes good, but don't say it. It's like one
Right,
of those
right, right.
things.
There you go.
I don't know why. I do not, maybe
Yeah.
because it's fish. I don't know. But by the time that Bennett was making his health claims, there were hundreds of recipes already in all these old cookbooks, different sort of household keeping cookbooks would have different recipes for ketchup. So there's mushroom varieties and all kinds of other varieties, but he put the tomatoes in it. So it can just cure everything. I mean, honestly, like ketchup is good. I like it. I can't, I don't like to eat fries without it. You know, I like to mix it with mayo, just like the ketchup and the mayo, which kind of grosses out Richard, but it's good though. Mayonnaise on French fries is like the best. I don't know. I'm a weirdo. He also hates, why can't I think of it? He hates, the stuff we have in New England for the fish.
Oh, the tartar sauce.
Yes, tartar sauce. Why couldn't I think of
Yeah.
the word tartar sauce?
No, no, it's just that I remembered that there was
It was amazing that you
usually it's the
remembered
other way
it.
around. You remember it, I don't, so
Oh no, my brain is absolute Swiss cheese by this point. But yeah, tartar sauce, very good on French fries. Not
yep,
medicine, but it kind of tastes like medicine when you eat it because it's very good.
yeah.
Mustard, understandably, mustard has been used since like ancient Egypt, Rome, and Greece. And you can kind of see where mustard would be used medicinally because it is very strong and spicy and like sharp and other adjectives that could be used to describe mustard. They used to use it topically, like you've heard of mustard plaster, I'm sure.
Yep.
It, it was basically just like a rag that you put this mustard paste on it and just put it on your chest. And I
Yep.
can understand, like, because if you think about horseradish clearing out your sinuses
Hmm.
when you eat it, mustard the same way, and a lot of mustards have horseradish in them. So it's understandable that that would be considered medicinal for a lot of reasons. They used it for muscle pain, which makes sense because they still use hot pepper for muscle pain today, the capsaicin. But mustard has a similar counter irritating effect on the skin. It would sting if you got it in your eyes, for instance. They used it for in Greece, muscle pain and congestion, but the Romans thought it could cure hysteria. We can do a whole discussion on what hysteria actually means. It, not to sound too feminist, but basically hysteria means you're a crazy woman. It comes from the same root word that uterus comes from, like, hysterectomy. You've heard of a
Yep.
hysterectomy. Well, hysteria and hysterectomy come from the same root word. And basically, hysteria meant that a woman was going insane because her uterus was just floating around in her body uncontrollably. So that's hysteria. You could cure that with mustard. It could cure snake bite and bubonic plague also, which is handy. And it's also used as a pesticide, which makes sense because if you think about plants that have strong tastes, that's on purpose. Plants will actually, like those hot peppers and everything. The reason why hot peppers are hot or plants taste like spice, certain things taste spicy when you eat them, like onions and things like that, is to prevent animals from eating them because they hurt when you eat it. It tastes bad or
Right.
it's like sharp or it like irritates you. Peppers have the capsaicin that's supposed to irritate your mouth and make you not eat it, which we have not learned that lesson as humans because people love that shit.
Yep.
But yeah, so it's used as a pesticide. Just about as long though, it's been used as a spice and flavoring because they're like, man, this medicine tastes great, and also this pesticide is delicious.
Hmm.
And of course, things that have strong flavors historically were used as spices because of the lack of refrigeration. You had to mask the smell and the taste of rotting food, which was very important. And so, this is the part of the show where I remind myself that despite the current social climate, I'm very glad that I don't live in a time where I have to disguise my rotting food so I can eat it.
That's
And yet I
exactly
do.
right.
I put mustard and ketchup on it, so I guess I do. And then chocolate, of course. Chocolate is
Everybody knows chocolate.
Everybody knows chocolate, and most people know that chocolate was used medicinally forever. It's ancient. It was used in Aztec and Mayan cultures and rituals, treatments for skin issues, fever, seizures, and then throughout the centuries, it was used medicinally. During the time when Europe had like the four humors theory, which is It's kind of simple, but kind of complicated. The four humors, the basic theory is that you had four different liquids in your body. It was blood, black bile, yellow bile, and phlegm. And those had to always be in harmony. And if they were out of harmony for some reason, you had to do something about it, usually bleeding. But then there was another part of the four humors that had like this temperature scale where people were either hot or cold, and they were either wet or dry. And ailments were hot or cold or wet or dry. And all substances were categorized that way. So if you had a sickness that they categorized as hot and wet, you would have to have a cure that was cold and dry. It's really weird. But chocolate was considered in its original form, like beans, is cold and wet. And then when it was a powder, it was cold and dry. And then when chocolate was a drink, it was hot and wet. So you could use it for anything.
Right.
So, and then when you spiced it with chili, it was dry. So the four humors, it's a fascinating part. And we as humans use the four humors theory for an embarrassingly long amount of time. Before germ theory, like even during germ theory, they were still using it. I mean, and they still use leeches today, which was part of the four humors thing. That, bleeding was still a thing. I mean, we have at least two presidents that died because of bloodletting, that sort of thing. So that's fun. But yeah, so and then up into the 1600s, chocolate was described as nourishing, good against coughs, smoothing out the roughness of arteries, which is like, okay, good against fever, asthma, and consumption, which is TB. Benjamin Franklin said it was a cure for smallpox. So that's very responsible of you, Benjamin Franklin. But, most people listened to him, so it was a little bit rough. It was also thought in the 1700s and 1800s that it was going to help you with stopping your hair from turning white or gray, which is fun. And Charles Darwin's grandfather, Erasmus Darwin, used it to treat his gout. And of course, in the 1800s, they used it to treat syphilis, cholera, measles, anemia, green sickness, which I think was a kind of anemia. And for anemia, it was recommended that they add iron fillings to the chocolate before you ate it. So you
So you get some.
Yeah, just go to the machine shop. Yeah.
Let's go to the machine shop. Yeah.
Just
So
go to the
listen,
machine
you gotta
shop.
get some.
Yeah.
You gotta get some iron in your diet, literally.
Right. I'm just picturing like in the machine shop where you used to work, the
Yeah.
little
Yep.
squiggly twirly pieces that came
Yep.
off the
Off the machine when they're milling it.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You just put that in your chocolate and eat that. What? They told me it was medicine. So, and then so you found some, right? That used to be medicine?
Yeah. Yeah. Just a few. The Scotch pine needles. They used to use it to reduce uric acid and gout.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, and tobacco treated constipation. Not sure whether you smoked it or ate it.
Well,
Uh,
actually, did you know that they used to use tobacco for resuscitation after drowning?
oh, really? Huh.
Yes, and do you know how they administered that tobacco for resuscitation after drowning?
Okay. How?
With a bellows.
Ah.
And where do you think they put the end of that bellows?
Hesitate to ask.
Yeah,
Uh,
logically, you'd think it would be in their mouth so that you could give them air.
right.
No,
Right.
they stuck it right up their ass.
So that's where blow it out your
Blowing
butt came
smoke.
from.
Yes. That's
Okay.
where blowing smoke up your ass comes from. They literally had it in kits by the beach sides. There was a bellows and like tobacco, and you put tobacco smoke in the bellows and do the bellows and blow it up the rectum
oh,
to resuscitate. And it might have, because it probably worked once maybe. And so they're like, there it is.
so they get specialists that do that work.
I mean, I think it's like one of those shock things that they have in buildings sometimes, where
Yeah.
anybody can just open it and use it if someone's laying on the ground. Just, oh, I'm sorry. Did you trip over that stone? Let me get the bellows.
Oh man.
Just stay away from me. I'm not going swimming. Go on.
Yeah, so that cough syrup contained opium, to
Oh,
treat
yes.
coughs. Yeah.
Everything had
Yeah.
opium is
Yeah.
great.
Cocaine for toothaches, any
Yep.
mouth pain.
hmm
You don't really care anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
For kids too, the cocaine.
yep.
Yeah.
Digitalis,
Oh, yes.
derived from the foxglove plant used to be treat heart failure and heart rhythm problems and pulmonary hypertension.
Yeah, it
Uh,
still is digoxin. They still use
yeah.
it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
so I just had a few there, but it's interesting. All these things that we start out used for other things, and then end up being, having as like you say, cola, having Coke for a drink, and
Yeah.
I mean, we've also heard about Coke to remove rust and things like that, but
Oh, yes.
um, so I guess you can have many uses on it.
Yeah, you could
And
put Mentos in the Coke and have a fun time with that when it
there
sprays
you
all
go.
over the
Yeah,
place.
yeah,
Although that is a fun science experiment,
yeah,
to do outdoors,
yeah.
like the volcano I never had to do in science class. I know it's a tangent, but now that I just said that, I was really disappointed that that wasn't something you did all the time. When you watch TV and a kid goes to school in a
Yeah.
TV show or a movie, inevitably they have to make a volcano for science class. And I never had to do that. And I felt robbed.
It's interesting that there wasn't a typical science project. Yeah.
Yeah,
Hmm.
yeah.
Worked in. Yeah.
I never had to make a volcano with the vinegar and baking soda or wherever. That's how you do it, right? I never had to do it. So I don't know. I never learned. They didn't want to
Hmm.
teach me how volcanoes work.
Hmm.
I did have to dissect a frog though, but I don't think
Yeah.
people have to do that anymore. But
Yeah. No, I don't think they do. I did that in biology class also. Yeah.
yeah,
So.
we did sheep's eyes and sheep's hearts and things like that. All
Hmm.
that fun stuff. All right, medicine. So that seems like a nice broad coverage of that subject, I think. I think we did well.
Yeah. Yeah. I think so. There's other things, the other ways you can go, like you and I talked about, and floor cleaners and stuff like that, and things they
Yeah.
used to use it for, which we'll not get into that
Oh,
at
you don't
this
want to
point.
talk about the Lysol?
No, I don't want to talk about the Lysol.
Guys, Google what Lysol used to be used for.
Yeah. So,
Yeah, we forgot to add that one in our notes, but that's your homework for this week is to look up what Lysol used to be used for and get back to us.
right.
Send us an email at mocciaverse@gmail.com if you can do all that. And let us know, give us your report on what Lysol used to be used for, and we'll give you a grade. We'll shout you. The best one gets a shout out on our next episode of the show. So there you go. All right. So with that, I suppose you have some
There you
torture
go.
for me. All right. Hit me with your best shot.
Yeah, I have a few things. That car seems nice, but the muffler looks exhausted. You know, the ghost told me he'd bring the booze to the party tonight.
Oh, that's cute. I like that. Halloween
Yeah,
themed.
yeah,
Very nice.
yeah. And this one is something I've used before. I follow the seafood diet. I see food,
Yeah.
then I eat it.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
better than the kids' seafood diet where it's just like, I have seafood. Meh, seafood.
Yeah. And I'm best at putting leaves in boiling water. It's my specialty.
Oh, that's
Um,
cute.
yeah. When I was younger, my parents told me I can be anyone I dreamed of becoming. Then I learned the hard way that identity thief is a crime.
That's good.
Yeah. Uh, Taylor Swift is immune to vampires. They know she has bad blood.
Do you even get that one?
No, I don't. It must be a song that she does.
It is. I was like, wow. Wow, you like
Yeah.
Taylor Swift? My
No,
dad's a Swiftie, guys.
no,
Isn't
I
that
don't
great?
think so. Yeah, I used
Yeah.
to be till never mind. Um,
Oh boy.
the bartender broke up with her boyfriend, but he convinced her to give him one more shot.
Oh my God, I love that.
Yeah. Did you hear about the new corduroy pillowcases?
Yes.
They're making headlines.
Yes, we may have told that one before.
Yeah, we
But
think
it
we
is
told that one
it's good
before.
though. It's good. It
Yeah,
deserves to be said. Yes.
yep. If the early bird catches the worm, call me the night owl because I prefer pancakes. Uh,
Okay.
the waiter asked me if I wanted a box for my leftovers,
Yeah.
but I told him I'm not into fighting.
I love that one. I see that
Yeah,
one. I see that one on Facebook a lot, and it's like really clever. I love that.
it is clever. You
You're
know,
like,
it's
no,
you want to put a bump after that.
but
Yeah.
I'm
So
we we just watched Young Frankenstein recently again. That's the but she always reminds me of like Igor,
Igor, yes, yes.
when he says like he says, "Can you grab the bags?" And he says, "Yeah, I'll take the blonde and you take the brunette."
That's right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And and the one that leads up to the brain, Abby Normal.
Abby
So
someone. Yeah. Abby
yeah,
someone.
yeah.
I can't tell you how many times we've watched that scene. We watched it so
I
many times.
believe it. I believe it. Yeah.
Oh
So
my God.
yeah.
Oh, on my other show, we're gonna eventually do a very, very long and very detailed episode on Young Frankenstein. It's my absolute favorite Mel Brooks
Yep.
movie ever. But anyway, that's yet another tangent. Um, Thank you for the dad jokes. And thank you guys for listening. I guess we'll see you in 2 weeks. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. Daddy wasn't finding a bow wow. I've got a little cat. I'm very fond of that. I'd rather have a big bow wow.
I think I have a few things I can use for outtakes for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
That's MOCCIA at Gmail. But no, it's not.